Hey YouTube, we're back with another video. We're working on that old Tecumseh again today. We're gonna clean the carburetor, get the recoil starter free and working good again. You know, look it over, to be sure there's not going to be any real issues with it. I didn't film it, but I took the Briggs 3.5 that was on this frame off, and it's sitting around in the junk pile. I don't know if I'll ever do any more videos with it or not. I might and I might not. I just ain't made my mind up yet. But I put it on this frame because I like big wheel frames better. Also, one of the people that I used to cut grass for wants me to start cutting their yard again. So I'm gonna use this to cut for trim work in their yard. They've got a big, huge yard that it's going to be a lot of weed eating well, it is a lot of weed eating and a lot of sitting on the riding mower and everything. And this is just going to be used for trim work, you know, to get around where I can't get with the rider. But so anyway, that's why I did that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Look at there, YouTube. Made in the USA. Well, that's all good and dandy, but it sure sucks that these old Tecumseh engines just weren't that great. But all right, let's get on with what we was doing. As always, there, YouTube. I've pre-loosened the bolts, you know, just for the sake of the video, make things move along a little faster. Okay, so let's get started. First, we're gonna push on the circle there to remove the breather cover. Okay, this breather is held onto the carburetor body by 2 screws, one here and the other one's on the back side, and it's dark back there. I know I wouldn't be able to film it, so it's already out and laying right here. Okay, we'll need our 1/4-inch socket for that. And it just comes off like that, YouTube. Let's get that there out of the way. We've got 2 5/16 screws here to remove, but as you see, one of them we can't really get to right here, so we'll have to go ahead and take all this off. Now, if memory serves me correctly, and by the way, YouTube, that's a mighty big if. Seems like I can't remember much of anything these days. Much better. Oh, if I remember right, to get this bottom screw on this intake tube here, if I remember correctly, we got to take the muffler off to be able to kind of get to it. I don't know, let's test that through and see if I was right. Yeah, it's easier just to take the muffler off. Okay, we'll got our 7/16 here, so let's do that. Okay, these little jumping spider. These little things, golly. This is about the worst muffler that Tecumseh ever had. This thing is god awful loud with these little old mufflers. Okay, we'll just switch on over here to our screwdriver. Tecumseh put, these are hex nuts, or hex screws I should say, and they're meant to be used with like a 3/8 socket, but you ain't gonna get no 3/8 socket on there because of that right there. I mean, I think some people can, but my 3/8 sockets just never really went on there. And these are the same tool set that I used way back in 2000 when I worked in the mower shop. I've kept them all this time because, you know, my tools, I use them. Okay, anyway, oh yeah, about this screwdriver bit here. See how it's narrow? It's a Phillips bit. See how it's narrow, gets wide, and then gets narrow again? That is the only one that I ever found that really fit these things right without, you know, either breaking off one of the little ears here or rounding it out. Oh, I must have tightened that up a little tighter than I thought. Get to that bottom one. Can we get to that one up top now? Yeah. Stop right there for a second. Grab our 5/16. Ooh, golly, that's stiff. Well, that was no good, YouTube. God damn it. But it's okay. We can still, I think I still have one of the old Tecumseh idle free deals on it. This is idle free as well, where you didn't have a throttle control on it, but they've come up with a later version that was just a little arm that came off the back here with a spring. I might still have one of those. If I don't, then we might be in a little trouble, YouTube. I don't believe that I have another Tecumseh intake laying around here. Okay. That is one nasty carburetor. Let's go back to what we was doing here. Yeah, you need to pay attention to how these go, YouTube, because these Tecumsehs, if you get the springs wrong, sometimes they'll run, but they'll run really slow, like just slightly above an idle, and then sometimes they don't run at all. That's just the way it is with Tecumsehs. This part is a little bit finicky, YouTube. There we go, got it. We'll just kind of lay that back right there, kind of where it needed to be. Remember, it goes in that hole right there, YouTube. That's the one that the little wire goes in. They got on these things. Some of them I've seen. Well, look, there, 1, 2, 3, and you know that big hole. It goes in that one right there. I do not know what these others were for. They may have been for, you know, who knows what they were for. I don't recall. Don't think I ever even saw anything with them. Okay, now we need to get the gas tank off. The tecumseh gas tanks were that was, I love that design because they're so easy to get off. See, you ain't getting that thing off like that. You have to tilt it back, raise it up past that notch like so, and then it comes right off. And of course that's much easier using two hands. Okay, so let's get rid of, yeah, these plastic nipples here on these tecumseh carburetors. You can't buy these nowhere, just that part. At least not that I ever found, and believe me, I have looked. Anyway, they're really hard to come by, so you don't want to risk breaking them. So we're just gonna unhook the carburetor from right here on the tank. Lay the tank on its side so it doesn't leak any gas. Alrighty, YouTube, we will go ahead and I'm sorry, YouTube. We'll go ahead and move over to the table and start disassembling this carburetor so we can clean it. Alright, we're back, YouTube. What you're seeing there in an instant is actually about 2 hours for me. I was unsuccessful in finding the piece that I needed, so we're just going to clean this thing and put it back together and hope for the best. Alright, so let's get started. YouTube, I did find my new primer button, which you see it's exactly the same with these old tecumseh carburetors. If you're gonna replace the primer button, then you actually need to get one that's exactly identical, or it will not work. Also, YouTube, Tecumseh always used a different plug, even though the outside of the carburetor looked identical. And you see that tiny little hole right there, YouTube? Okay, sometimes Tecumseh would actually move that up into these threads here, and if that hole is plugged, it ain't gonna run. I have literally seen these things back in the days when I worked in the shop. I'd seen these things be worked on by other repair shops, and they're like, well, we can't get it running. They'd bring it to us, and we would to pull the carburetor off and clean it and find that this little hole was plugged. Granted, I only saw that a couple dozen times, and then I think my boss at the time went down to that shop because they were all coming from another shop and pointed out the mistake that they were making. So, you know, I might have that wrong. It's been so many years now, but you know, anyway, that's the way I remember it. Okay, so let's shove that back in there. By the way, all these bolts were pre-loosened just for the sake of, you know, to keep the video going pretty quick. Okay. With these, you absolutely need a 7/16 and a 3/8 wrench. These have already been loosened, so. That's probably why people didn't like Tecumsehs too much, because they have things that would look the same, and then it was hard to get parts because you never knew if the part was exactly the right part that you needed, you know. Be sure that we don't lose that gasket. Set that out of the way. Now we'll get this. I have also come across a brand new needle and seat for this thing in the shop, but since this one wasn't flooding, I can see that we didn't need it, so I didn't bring it down. But if you've got one of these and you're working on it, you can buy a Briggs & Stratton needle and seat. You'll use the seat out of it, the little rubber seat. You'll use the rubber seat out of it and your original tecumseh needle, and that will work and not cause you any problems. Yeah, I can see we boogered that gasket up. So tecumseh was kind of famous for using these big old gaskets, thick gaskets. So a lot of times you could get by with damaging them a little bit and it'd be okay. And I can see that. Can y'all see the trash in that? Here, let me see if I can kind of pour it off. Yeah, there might even be a touch of water in that. Can y'all see that trash now, YouTube? See it moving around in there? So yeah, this carburetor absolutely needed to be cleaned. Okay, with these tecumsehs, you got this little wire here that holds your needle in place. So, you know, the way I do it, I just slide the pin out. And obviously let everything fall on the table where you could potentially lose it. Now, since this was running, we know that it's not real terribly dirty, so we're just going to spray it out, and then that should be pretty good for this. I can see a little bit of trash right around in here, so that was probably that's where the gas comes from the bowl up into here into the emulsion tube. So that was probably our spitting and sputtering. There's probably trash getting sucked through these little holes right here, one here and one here, and probably causing our spitting and sputtering issue. So let's go ahead and spray this out and see what we get, YouTube. In later years, tecumseh did go to a thinner gasket that you could, you know, damage and have to replace. So, you know. Clean. Spray that emulsion tube out. Oh, these old tecumsehs. You got to be real careful with these, YouTube. You can actually be spraying one of these out and have the carburetor spray come back and actually hit you in your face. Oh. Wow. Look at my hand, YouTube. I'm gonna have to step out from in front of the camera because all this bending over to keep everything in front of the camera, YouTube's getting a little rough on my back. Oh. Alright, YouTube, let's go ahead and reassemble everything here. This gasket may be swelled up a little bit, YouTube. Doesn't want to seat in there properly. There we go, we got it now. Okay, there we go. Yeah, these tecumsehs, they have a divot in the bottom of the this divot in the bottom of them. I forgot about that till just now. That if you want it to be put on with its high side this away. If you should mess her up and get it turned, say this away, then your float bowl will not open enough to allow the fuel to flow enough for your engine to run. Some of the later ones were just a slightly larger bowl and didn't have that divot in it. YouTube, I absolutely forgot all about that. Glad I remembered it. It took me forever. It took me forever to figure it out, what I'd done wrong. I fully expect that this thing is gonna leak because that gasket swelled up a little bit and it just doesn't seem to want to allow it to seat right. If it comes down to it, seeing that a carburetor whole new carburetor. Oh, you know what? We got it, YouTube. Good. By the way, the bottom plug, jet or whatever, is a 1/2 inch. I forgot to tell you that, I think. Okay. Alrighty. Oh, this is bending over and sucking. I'm just going to put these bolts back in loosely where I can stop the camera and do this standing up straight, because this is a little rough on my back. Some of these old things, YouTube, with tecumseh, they'd have one bolt with the nut facing this away, and then sometimes they'd have the other nut facing this away. And there didn't actually seem to really be any rhyme or reason for that way back then, other than whoever assembled the carburetor done something wrong, didn't do it exactly right. Because, you know, there was no real reason to have them facing in opposite directions. But they surely did it. I hope y'all can hear me okay. Alrighty. That's how the carburetor is reassembled, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera so I can do this and stand up straight. Oh. Okay, YouTube, let's see about getting this thing put back together. Okay, that goes there. Put in that one screw, because, you know, we broke the other one. Well, I broke the other one. I know that guy out there in the back row is going, yo, yo, yo. He's back there saying, hey, 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 what is this wee stuff? Well, put that right there for now. Grab our two screws here. And our screwdriver bit. Okay. Sorry for bumping the camera, YouTube. I told y'all earlier that might happen. There is supposed to be a paper gasket that goes between the manifold and the block. This one didn't have it, and it didn't really seem to be causing any issues, so I didn't try to hunt one down or bother trying to make one. Okay. Let's see. Well, we better switch over and use our 5/16, I think. YouTube, that might actually still work with just having one screw in it. We might have sort of dodged a bullet there, so to speak, of course. Getting these mufflers back on is a little finicky. None of these nuts and bolts have to be extremely tight, YouTube, because especially these exhaust bolts, because they're you know, exposed to heat, so many heating and cooling cycles. This was supposed to have a piece of metal with a tab that bent over to lock the bolts in. This one doesn't have it, so you know, it is what it is. Okay, nice and tight. We will torque on that carburetor, them carburetor screws a little bit more. Well, darn. Well, I guess it's tight enough. I sort of think I just damaged either the screw or my screwdriver bit. I think these have actually been replaced over the years and not the original ones that I had. But they work. Okay, time for the air filter. Okay, now the air filter has a screw here and here. This one will be back on this back side, and y'all won't be able to see me put it in, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that and get it done. You won't be able to see me do it though. Oh good, it's still got its little rubber gasket in there. This one y'all will be able to see me do, YouTube. Just kind of gotta feel your way along on this one, YouTube. There's the bolt, I think. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Nice and tight, and she's all back together. Well, with the exception of the gas tank, which I think I'm going to clean the gas tank out. We'll go ahead and put the breather cover back on. you want to get these two tabs into those there slots and press it down. And there you go. Alright, hold on a little bit, YouTube. Okay, YouTube, I decided that I wasn't going to clean this gas tank out because, well, honestly, gas just costs too much these days. Okay, y'all can see, just slide it on like so, and take your pliers. I like to use these big old wide ones. Grab it and squeeze, and there you go. Set your tank on there, and that is D-O-N-E, done. YouTube, let me pick up my tools and stuff, and we'll see if this puppy can crank up and run. If it runs better, then we'll change that old soft primer button out. Cause yeah, that thing's about done. Alright. That's that screw that we broke. Okay, YouTube, I had to figure before we try to crank it that I was going to try to do something with that sticky pull top. Okay, these things are held on by 3/4 inch head screws, of which I've already removed 2. I left this one here so y'all could see it. Did y'all get dizzy, YouTube? Okay, on some of these tecumsehs, this top was clockable. You could clock it to where the pull rope was pointing in a different direction. This one I see an extra hole here, so, and I see an extra hole here, so yeah, this one is one of the ones that can be clocked to it. Well, okay, I'm sorry, this one's got 4 screws, YouTube. That's wild. I've never seen one with 4 screws, YouTube. I've only seen them with 3. It's right here, if you can't, in case you guys can't. Yeah, you can barely see it, but yeah. Okay, let's try that again, YouTube. Okay, this one is absolutely clockable, able to be clocked to a different position. Although the position that it's in is pretty good, so we're not going to mess with it. Sorry about that, YouTube. Well, this seems a wee bit stiff. So we've got this Remington oil here. Sorry, YouTube, that's the only spray lubricant that I've got on hand right now. So I think I paid $8 or $9 for this can. Okay, we'll want to I'm just going to put a little bit more here, YouTube. Yeah, y'all can see. Hey. I know this looks like a lot of oil, YouTube, but it really isn't. I sprayed probably maybe 1.5 ounces of oil in here. Probably not even that much. Well, it's certainly better than it was, YouTube, so let's go ahead and put it back on. Let's see. There we go. Put this one in first. You know what? I'm not going to make y'all watch me do that. I'll bring y'all back when it's bolted back on. Okay, YouTube, we got that pull top bolted back on. Let's turn this thing over and see about getting us a temporary blade on there so we can fire it up. This blade is just a temporary blade, and it's not going to be, it's only for starting the mower up. Good. And it died on me. Okay, I gotta figure out what we done wrong, YouTube. Well, I have no idea, YouTube. That thing, this thing I hate about tecumsehs, you never know if they're going to actually run right after you mess with them. Let's put it in, try putting it in a little bit of grass. Hold on, nah, yeah, we'll do it.